So my name is Ryan Miller. I graduated from the University of Kansas in 2017 with a major in journalism and mass communications, specifically the news and information track. And then I actually went back to school while working full time in 2021. I actually went back to the University of Kansas and did an online program. And I graduated in 2023 with a master's in digital content strategy from also from the journalism school. I'm the communications manager for the Washington State Department of Ecology's nuclear waste program. And kind of the high level Cliff Notes version is the Department of Ecology oversees the U.S. Department of Energy's cleanup of the Hanford site in Washington State. And the Hanford site produced about 2/3 of the nation's plutonium during the nuclear weapons production years, and so World War II and the Cold War. And so we're overseeing cleanup at that site, and it's one of the most complex contaminated cleanup sites in the world right now. With my job there, I supervise a team of 4 other communications staff, and together I either conduct or oversee their work, and all of the communications work our program does. And I've got a bit of a list of some of the stuff we do, which includes, media relations, creating communications plans, and just doing general strategic communications for the program. We do a lot of outreach and education work, where we go out to the community and do presentations to schools and community groups, and really try to reach people and raise awareness and engagement about the Hanford site. I also oversee the communications for our public involvement. So, when we've got cleanup decisions that the agencies make together, or if we have like a permit that needs to go out, we'll hold associated public involvement like comment periods or public meetings. We also do a lot of stakeholder engagement. There's a big board called the Hanford Advisory Board that provides advice to our agency and the other agencies related to the Hanford cleanup. So we do a lot of stakeholder engagement. I serve on this other thing for the agency, across the agency. I serve on this rotation called spills duty, where it's like this after-hour standby duty. So if there's like a big environmental spill that happens in the state, a couple times a year, I'll be on like the rotation to respond to a spill for communications if one happens in the state. And then lastly, one of the bigger things I do if it happens, which we hope never happens, is I serve on the Emergency Operations Center if there were ever to be a big emergency out at the site. So I serve on, specifically, it's called the Joint Information Center, or the JIC. So I'll go and support that effort if there's like an emergency or some other kind of big event that happens out. I really think I learned a lot of really valuable skills and fundamentals when I was at the University of Kansas, both times, when I was there for my bachelor's degree and when I was there for my master's degree. I think at its most basic, I learned a lot of really valuable writing and editing skills that a lot of the lessons I learned, still kind of stick in my head when I'm doing writing or editing for my current work. Even though I'm not in journalism anymore, I'm still in communications, and a vast majority of those skills and experiences carry over to my job after I switched from being a reporter to working in communications. I learned a lot about, visual design, data analysis, photography, videography, graphic design, and just a bunch of other practical skills that were super helpful on a day-to-day basis for my career. I had a really great experience. One of my capstone classes back in 2017 for my undergraduate was, so I'd actually kind of graduated and then did like a 2-week kind of capstone class I still had to take right afterwards. And it was a bit of an in the field kind of a class. It was only like a 2-week kind of super busy class in the 2 weeks, but it was very valuable. It was one of my favorite classes I took. I went out to El Dorado, Kansas, and I did a story on prison to poverty, where I went to this maximum security prison and did a really cool story where I talked about recidivism and some different impacts about kind of that cycle of prison to poverty. And I went to Kansas City and talked to somebody that had been recently released, and talked to a wide variety of officials, and that was an incredibly valuable experience I had, because like the next week after that class, I went to my new job as a reporter, and just one example of a really valuable experience that one of those classes offered. Started as a reporter for a few years, and then I moved back to Washington State and switched to a communications role at Ecology. And then a couple years later, I was promoted up to communications manager. But I think what really inspired me to pursue my current career path was, a love of journalism and communications in general. It's something I've always been passionate about, is writing and journalism and communications and just general storytelling. But another big component that I'm passionate about is environmental protection. And when I saw that initial job opening at the Department of Ecology, I was super excited about it because I could kind of combine my love of journalism and communications with one of my passions about just protecting the environment that we live in, especially a state that I love so much, up in the state of Washington. I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I've been given, especially that's relevant in my current job, is and I think it's really important if you're a reporter or just doing general communications, reporting journalism work too, is and I think that piece of advice is that when you're listening, whether it's listening for a story or if you're listening to a member of the public sharing their concerns about a cleanup issue, it's really important that you listen to understand and that you don't listen to respond. It's a really crucial piece of advice that kind of just sticks in my head, especially when we're doing, when you're working with your peers at other agencies together on issues. If you're interviewing somebody, if you're trying to, build a professional relationship, if you're trying to really understand what somebody's concern is, I think that is just one of the most valuable, critical pieces of advice that has just kind of stuck with me, is just listening to understand somebody and not listening to just immediately respond. Specifically, when you're at the university, make sure that you're utilizing the resources that both the university offers, but also specifically what the J School offers to you. There's just an absolute wealth of valuable resources. And in my time, for both of my degrees, I utilized a lot of those resources myself, but there's others I didn't. And some of them I heard about a little later on. Some of them I just didn't utilize, and they would have been very valuable. And so I encourage, any student that's going to the university, is don't be afraid to utilize all the resources that are provided to you, and also don't be afraid to ask your professors questions. All of the professors I had were so incredibly helpful and wanted to see you succeed, and don't be afraid to go after a class and talk if you have any questions or concerns. I look back on those years, and there's some very valuable years that I look back on fondly, and I always love visiting KU when I can, and going to the J School and seeing how things are changing.